Great afternoon, everyone. Calling the Committee on Labor and Technology to order. We will begin with our 301 agenda. Today's March 23rd, Monday, 2026. We're in conference room 225. Just a few housekeeping announcements. This meeting is being streamed live on the Hawaii Senate YouTube channel. In the unlikely case of technical failures, we'll reconvene here in conference room 225 on March 25th, 2026 at 3 p.m. For all testifiers, including those on Zoom, we ask that you sign in your written testimony. If your oral testimony is different from your written testimony, the time limit for each testifier will be 1 minute. The content, including the hearing notice, copies of the measures, and testimony can be found on the legislature's website. If time permits, decision-making will occur after we hear from all those offering testimony. First up on our 301 agenda is House Bill 2455, House Draft 2. This is relating to employment practices. First up on our list is Keith Hayashi, Superintendent, DOE. Anyone from the DOE here? I know I saw him earlier. Okay, Ricky, anyone on Zoom for DOE?
No one present, Chair, on Zoom.
Okay. Move on. Kamakana Kamiloa, UPW.
Chair, UPW is kind of testimony strong support.
Okay, testimony support, thank you. Yasmin Cheney, did I get that right this time? Executive Director for the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women.
Hi, thank you. Yasmin Cheney for the Commission on the Status of Women. I'll stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you so much. And that completes our list of registered testifiers on House Bill 2455. I'll also note that we did receive 9 in support, 0 in opposition, and 0 comments. Anyone else who wishes to testify on House Bill 2455, House Draft 2? If not, members, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll proceed to our next agenda item, which is House Bill 2165, House Draft 2. This is relating to the Hawaii Employment Security Law. And first up on our list is Director Butai from DLIR. Aloha, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Lafante, Madam Vice Chair Lamasao, and Senator Moriwaki. I'm Jane Butai, Director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. We stand on our testimony in strong support, and thank you for hearing this bill. And we just want to respectfully request an amendment in Section 2 to move the amendment pertaining to limiting collections from subsection A to subsection C. This change preserve the proper legal structure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And you'll be around if there's any questions, right? Thank you. Okay, that's all I have listed, registered to testify on this. In total, we have 2 in support, 2 in opposition, and 2 comments. Anyone else on House Bill 2165, House Draft 2? Okay, if not, members, questions? Okay, Vice Chair Lamasao, question for DLIR?
DLIR, yes. Thank you, Director, for your testimony. I just wanted to know, I know this is one of your folks' priorities as well, even if it didn't make into the admin package, but I just wanted to clarify, based on the memo that you folks did receive from the U.S. Department of Labor, like, would this bill, I know it's guidance, but I just want to know if you folks had any contact with them in regards to this bill to, I guess, have any discussion in regards to it following that guidance, it being okay, and things like in that nature. Because I don't know if I can see there's like a lot of issues with some of the unions that could be impacted by this while they are on strike. So I just wanted to know if you folks consulted with them to make sure that you folks would be in compliance, I guess, following their guidance.
I mean, we have regular contact with them, but the guidance is, I mean, it would show though that we would be non-conforming. So because the unemployment insurance it's a federal program, and they give us the federal funds to administer it. So we have to.
So this bill, it would be conforming to their guidance then.
If we adjust the, that subsection A, it would, the section 2, it would be conform.
With your amendments. Okay, so but you haven't had any discussion as of recent in regards to this particular bill and also your amendments, though?
No, I wouldn't say not this particular bill, but we always have discussions with them because we want to make sure that,
Right.
we're in compliance.
Exactly. And so that was my thing is that if you're not in discussion and this bill moves forward and you're still non-conforming, and so that's why I'm trying to figure out if they said this would be okay.
Yeah, this would be conforming.
Okay.
If like I said, if you change the, the section 2, the requested amendments that we propose.
Okay.
I think if I may, to add on to Vice Chair's comment and concern, I think there were some concerns raised by some of the unions regarding not in particular that particular section, but striking out language as it relates to on page 2 from lines 12 to 14, where if labor unions are in a dispute. And I think what she's attempting to get at is if you had any verbal communication or written communication subsequent to the January 8th letter from DOL.
Not subsequently, but not for this particular bill. I mean, I know our administrator, she attended a conference, but it was more about the future of UI under the current administration. But on the labor disputes, as long as the union has a hiring law, it wouldn't impact them.
Okay. Thank you.
Members, any further questions on this? Senator Moriwaki?
Director, hi. I don't understand the deletion on page 7, section C of the 2 years versus, is it forever? Why was it changed from 2 years to, I guess, you can claim forever, go after a person forever? I'm not
Because,
sure what that means.
The unemployment insurance it's a public it's public money, and it's the requirement is we have to get the money back. So we cannot if we say you limit it to 2 years, then after 2 years it's supposed to be, but it also goes into the integrity of the program.
But it seems to me to keep it open-ended, you can go after a person forever. No?
But we have waivers, and we have flexible payment plans.
So what was the rationale, I guess, for taking out the 2-year limits statute? I guess it's a statute of limitation, 2 years. No? Can you explain what that means? I don't understand.
It's to maintain the integrity of the program, because the requirements under the US DOL is that we have to recover overpayment. But, depending on if there's some protections where, if someone, due to hardship, we can, we have waivers and flexible repayment plans, but we cannot just say after 2 years, we just waive it.
I guess I'm not sure why you are deleting the 2-year restriction. Is that federal law or,
Let me ask our administrators. She's the subject matter expert on.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Ann Eustachio, Unemployment Insurance Administrator. So the 2 years, Senator, is 2 years for the offset credit. And so not 2 years of a statute of limitations. I think that's the misunderstanding. The tax the benefits that were overpaid to an individual is due for life. It is a liability, a legal liability that's due. Even the statute says that.
But why was it 2 years before and now you're
So this change is not a statute of liability change. What it does is it's just allowing us to use a offset credit after 2 years. So currently, right now, the statute states that a claimant is overpaid. And if they come back and they still get additional benefits, future benefits, and they haven't paid back all of their overpayment yet, if it's within 2 years, we can offset their benefits.
Oh, so this
But if
allows
it-
you to offset beyond.
Yes, but if it's beyond 2 years, currently, we cannot offset the
see.
benefits. So what would happen is they would come in to receive additional benefits, future benefits, and say they would still owe us benefits. They would be taking money from a trust fund that they owed money to.
I see.
So we are in agreement that, claimants have to still continue to survive while they're on unemployment. So we really like the amendment that was made where it's, as long as it's no less than 250, 50% of what they owe and no less than 250. But we're just saying it's in the wrong area. It was put in the amendment was incorrectly put in the statute. So we want to move it from A to C.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, any further questions? What we'll do for this, seeing that the CPN chair is here and want to be respectful of their time, is I'll excuse you for now. We'll call for a final test, for any final testifiers on this measure, House Bill 2165, House Draft 2, and then if there's further questions, we can ask that. So right now, at this point in time, seeing that CPN committee is here, Ricky, from IT, we're gonna recess this 301 agenda and come back to it. So recess subject to the call of the chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delayed start. This is our 3 p.m. joint agenda between the Committee on Labor and Technology and Commerce and Consumer Protection. We'd like to welcome Chair Kyoho Kolole and your members for joining us for a joint hearing and meeting with us this afternoon. We just have one item on our agenda. And before we begin, just a few housekeeping announcements. It's March 23rd, 2026. We're in conference room 225. And this meeting is being streamed live on the Hawaii State Senate's YouTube channel. In the unlikely case of technical failures, this meeting will reconvene here in conference room 225 on March 25th, 2026 at 3 p.m. For all testifiers, including those on Zoom, we ask that you sign any written testimony. If your oral testimony is different from your written testimony, the time limit for each testifier will be 1 minute. The content, including the hearing notice, copies of the measures, and testimony, can be found on the legislature's website. If time permits, decision-making will occur after we hear from those offering testimony. And as I mentioned, one item, House Bill 1509, House Draft 2. This is relating to workers' compensation. First up is Director Butai.
Aloha, Chair Elefante, Chair Keo Kalole, and members of the committee, Jade Butai for the LAR. We stand on our testimony in support. This measure helps ensure injured workers receive timely medical care by requiring employers to approve their treatment plans within a clear day, 10-day timeframe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. DHER, Director Hashimoto.
Good afternoon, Chairs. Brenda Hashimoto here. We'll stand on our written testimony, providing comments.
Okay, providing comments and requesting an amendment. Thank you. Kamakana Kamiloa, UPW.
Chair, UPW stands for written testimony and support.
Okay, in support, thank you. And on Zoom, Nancy Molden.
Members, I support this bill. I was an injured worker, and after a back injury and a simple test, just a simple test was requested. And there was silence. And it took years for me to recover. Some days I couldn't even walk my dog. I'm asking, technology has moved very quickly throughout the past years, yet treatment approvals remain slow for decades. I support this bill. Injured workers deserve timely 7-day decisions. I know you're moving it to 10. 7 days for a simple test is much more reasonable. 10 days, I understand for surgeries, but delayed care is delayed healing. It's not silence. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. That completes the list of registered testifiers that have registered with us. Anyone else on House Bill 1509, House Draft 2? Okay, if not, members, any questions? Yeah, Senator McKelvey, question for?
UPW took off already. I don't know who this would be, Dee or anybody else, but I guess I'll just ask it out loud. Why the back and forth? Why not just cut to the chase and say that if they don't respond or the plan is, or fail to file certain documents, that the plan is automatically deemed to be accepted?
That's already in the statute now.
Okay. So this is like trying to, I guess, help businesses address, getting them due process. Is that the change?
We're posting the penalty.
You might want to come up,
Yeah,
please.
sorry, I'm just.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, DHER's position is that the penalty is not necessary because the statute already provides that when there's no response from the employer to a treatment plan, it's already automatically approved.
Okay.
So it seems unnecessary to
Yeah,
penalize
okay.
employers for not filing something that
Yeah.
already gives the benefit of the doubt to the employee.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chair.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, Chair. We have one more testifier on Zoom.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, hi, Joanne. Good afternoon.
Hi there, Director is there. I'm just standby in case Director was going to use me to answer any questions.
Okay, yes, you did provide testimony in person, and we do have your written testimony as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then members, I'll note that there were 6 in support, 3 in opposition, and 3 comments. Okay, any further questions? If not, we'll do a short recess. Short recess. Okay, thank you, everyone. Chairs having conferred, this is reconvening our 3 p.m. joint agenda between Labor and Technology and Commerce and Consumer Protection. We do have a recommendation. Recommendation is that we are going to pass with amendments. We're going to accept and adopt testimony from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union, IBW 1186, and which will revert back from 10 days to 7 days. And then finally, we're going to change the effective date to January 1st, 2077. And then in addition to that, we're going to strike out language dealing with the employer who fails to file a response within a 10-day period shall be fined $500. So we're going to strike that language out. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, Vice Chair Lamasao for the vote, Chair votes aye with amendments.
Okay, members, we're voting on HB 1509, HD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair also votes aye. Senator Ihara is excused. Senator Moriwaki.
Aye.
Senator Favela is also excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted. And then,
Okay, for the CPN committee, the recommendation is the same, passing with amendments. Chair votes aye.
okay, members voting on HB 1509, HD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Senator Fukunaga is excused. Senator Lamasao is aye. Senator McKelvey.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, this concludes our joint hearing. We're adjourned for the 3 o'clock joint. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, thank you for everyone's patience. We're reconvening our 301 single labor and technology agenda. We left off at House Bill 2165, House Draft 2, relating to the Hawaii Employment Security Law. I'll take a last call for anyone that wishes to testify on this. Yes. Ms. Tokusato, aloha and welcome.
Thank you. I'm Jolie Tokusato with Unite Here Local 5. We did put in written testimony, but I wanted to make very clear that Local 5 believes that that you don't need to change the law because you already have the discretion to exempt strike striking workers from job search requirements. And I just wanted to point out that when you're on strike, at least for our members, they're not just sitting at home doing nothing. They're actually on the strike line, which is very, very difficult. They also, they're already taking a financial hit, and it's very difficult for them, even if, to get unemployment insurance as well. It has to impact the employers a certain amount before they even qualify. So it's not like it's easy for them anyway. So we just wanted you to, please know that we're strongly opposed to this measure. And thank you so much for letting me testify.
Okay, thank you. As a follow-up to that, thank you for being here and for your testimony. If the committee were to decide to restore language that is previously deleted regarding labor dispute for employment or employer relationship that continues to exist, would you folks be okay with that?
We think it's better.
Yeah.
Better than what
The
it
current
is now.
version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of things that, we'd probably like to, talk about as far as like the statute of limitations and things, but that was the most important part of it that we thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Local 5? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, final call for anyone on House Bill 2165, House Draft 2. I'll note that there were 2 support, 2 in opposition. And I'd like to call back DLIR Director and Ann. Okay, so I know in follow-up to Vice Chair Lamasao's questions that she had regarding your January 8th letter from the Department of Labor, wouldn't you consider that is not so much binding in law, but more just federal guidance in terms of a letter per se? Or would you feel that based on their letter is your interpretation that our current existing statute would be in violation of federal law or based on that letter?
Yeah, that would be, the latter would be our interpretation, that we would not be in conforming with the federal guidance.
Okay. And usually DLIR's past practice is to follow federal conforming guidance despite if administrations change.
So in 2025, DLIR created this section of the statute.
Okay.
This measure was entered in 2025. So prior to 2025, we did not have this section in the statute that allowed us to waive the work search requirements for those during a labor dispute. In 2025, that was entered into the statute. We were notified by USDOL in 2026 of January that we were out of compliance under the statute. And so conformity is a requirement for our federal grant. It is not discretionary in any manner. And so when they sent us that letter, and it was quite clear with all the question and answer, so it wasn't just sent to us, there were several other states that they sent it to as well who were out of conformity. And so the conformity letter was extremely clear to let us know that we are out of conformity with the insert of that language in 2025.
Okay.
And that's why we're concerned.
Okay.
Certain unions with the hiring hall
Yes.
would be.
So let me ask as a follow-up to that. So I know there were some labor unions that were in opposition, but through further discussions, it's my understanding that DLIR, you folks do have a list of hiring halls, even though perceptionally in the letter that you receive, it strikes out language relating to individuals involved in a labor dispute. So can you explain a little bit more about the list that you have and if that conforms with work searches, if someone that is part of a labor dispute and if that qualifies, even though the language is here proposed to strike out that section?
Right. So federal requirements do not allow us to carve out a specific group of individuals to not have to look for work. And so by doing so, by not having labor dispute individuals not look for work is a carve out. And that's why we're not in conformity. But within the conformity requirement, In the letter, it states that unions who have a hiring hall and their members are in good standing, then they do not have to look for work. And so they do not have to perform the work search function. And so DLIR has an authorized list of unions that are on the authorized list to allow their members, as long as they are in good standing, to not have to look for work during a labor dispute.
Okay. And then the final question I have, actually two-part question to that is, I know Schwarm had some concerns and they've wrote in their testimony, and has that something that DLIR has looked at and maybe addressing and working with Schwarm to address some of their concerns?
Most definitely. We actually want compliance, right? Compliance makes our job easier. And so we want to work with employers and claimants to comply with the statute. And whatever we need to do to help them do that, we're here to do that. We have something called SIDES. It's a program funded by USDOL. It's a free program for employers to report wage separation information to us, to Department of Labor, when someone files a claim. And so we had back in 2024, about 20 sessions for employers to learn SIDES, learn how to use it so they can electronically file their separation reports. The reason why that time period is so tight is because USDOL has tight time periods on our core measures on first timeliness payments. And so we're supposed to pay a claimant when due. And if we don't pay when due, we're not meeting those timeliness payments. And so we have all of these strict dates as well that we need to meet so we can meet these timeliness payments through USDOL. But definitely, we would love to reach out to all employers to help them be able to meet the 5 days by using this SIDES application that allows them to electronically file.
Okay. And then finally, so our understanding is that you need this bill to be in conformance with the January 8th letter and the federal rule guidelines. So without it, our current law would be in violation of federal rules and guidelines as it relates to the unemployment security law. Is that correct?
As it relates to conformity with the unemployment and security law, correct.
Okay.
And so our grant currently is a little over 14 million with U.S. Department of Labor administratively to run the program. Also, employers in the state of Hawaii receive the FUTA tax credit. Without that FUTA tax credit, employers will be paying 6% FUTA tax instead of 0.06% FUTA tax on the 7,000 taxable limit. And so that's a big difference. We can't afford for employers to lose that FUTA tax credit and our administrative fund to, to fund the administrative expenditures of this program.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, if not, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is House Bill 1515, House Draft 2, relating to workers' compensation. First up on our list is Director Butai. Sorry, should I just ask you to just stay there?
I'll just stay here. Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and Senator Moriwaki. We stand on our testimony.
Okay, thank you. Director Hashimoto, D heard. Thank you. And then that's all I have listed to testify on House Bill 1515. I'll note that there were 7 in support, 1 in opposition, and 1 comment. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on this measure? Okay, if not, members, any questions? Okay, we'll move on. House Bill 1514, House Draft 2. This is relating to workers' compensation. And first up on our list is Director Butai.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Senator Moriwaki. We stand on our testimony.
Okay, thank you. Director Hashimoto. Okay, thank you. And then on Zoom, Nancy Molden. Hello again.
Hi, Chair and members. I strongly oppose this bill. Imagine you worked your whole life and suddenly you cannot return due to an injury. Your job is your identity, your purpose, your routine. It's all gone. Grief follows denial, anger, depression, and a struggle to accept who you are. Only then can vocational rehab begin. It requires a physician, assessment of limitations, a job analysis, a labor market survey, a specific services needed to support successful return to work. This is part of the vocational rehab plan. This bill mandates 120 days. This is unrealistic. This particular plan you're talking about affects the worker and their entire family's future. Recovery takes time. This bill takes it away. I thank you very much, Chair and members.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. Okay, that's all I have that is registered to testify. Anyone else on House Bill 1514, House Draft 2? Okay, I'll note that for this one, we had 5 in support, 4 in opposition, and 0 comments. With that, members, any questions? Okay, I have a question for DLIR, please. Okay, so on this one, I know the language, original language was 90 days, and it was extended in the House draft to 120. However, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the reading of this bill, if there is more time that is needed for the vocational rehabilitation plan, you could have that discretion, Director, to extend it as need be with no cap on the amount of extensions. Is that a correct understanding?
Chair,
This is on page 7 of the bill.
I want to level set with you. I'm not an expert on workers' comp, but my subject matter expert is on the
Okay.
Zoom. She's had her limit with the range, so
Hello, Joanne. I don't know if you were able to hear that question. If not,
I
I'm
did.
happy to repeat
Thank
it
you
for
very
you.
much. Yes, that is from 90 to 120. And it does allow currently, and with this proposal, we would allow for the director's discretion with no cap. That is
Okay.
correct.
And have you seen, currently under existing law, have you had to have any, is there any issue with this and not getting the VR plans in a timely manner?
No, the purpose really is to define some type of timeline, because we do have some VR plans that extend out a significant amount of time. And so each work comp case is, or each work comp, case is, it's a case by case. And so some are more complex than others with a tight labor market. So director's discretion is always important. And so this would allow for that.
Okay,
With no
thank you.
cap.
And if you can identify yourself for the record, please.
Joanne Vittenhar, Administrator, Disability Compensation Division. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joanne. And thank you, Director. Unless members, do you have any further follow-up questions? Okay, if not, thank you so much. We did call for a final call on that, so we'll move on. Our next item is House Bill 2458, House Draft 3. This is relating to surveillance pricing. First up on our list is Dominic John Catarino. Is that correct?
Close enough. Jane Catarino.
Jane Cantarino.
Hi.
DCCA, right?
Yes, thank
Yes, I'm sorry for mispronouncing your
No,
last
you're
name.
fine. Happens all the time. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dominic Jane Catarino. I'm enforcement attorney with OCP. We submitted written testimony.
If you can speak a little closer to the mic so we could hear you, please. Thank you.
OCP, we resubmitted written testimony. We stand on our testimony and we're available for questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Nate Hicks for Hawaii Public Health Institute. After Nate Hicks is Steve Teves. Aloha, welcome.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Moriwaki, Nate Hicks with Hawaii Public Health Institute. In support, surveillance pricing allows corporations to extract the maximum amount, set different prices based on people's income, zip code, or other personal identified information. This is standard practice for some areas, like airline pricing. I think we're kind of used to it. But we think groceries has got to be off the table for that. We can't extract people's income, dollars earned for basic things like grocery prices. That should be off the table. And so this is why we don't want this to pass, or we want this to pass. We don't want this practice to continue to ensure that people's hard-earned dollars aren't going to buy broccoli or whatever the case might be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nate. Steve Teves, in opposition.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Moriwaki, Steve Tevis for Safeway. This is our first appearance on this bill. Did not appear before. We have concerns about the bill, but we know there were other entities who are opposing it because of some of the vagueness of the definitions. I'm here today because for whatever reason, the loyalty awards exemption was removed at the last hearing. And as I have here, if you look at, and it was in there for the original bill, the HD1, the HD2, and the definition by itself says, and this is the definition from the original bill that talks about readily available to the public, posted on the website, consistently for all consumers. So we don't understand why it was taken out. And as I think everyone knows who shops locally, Safeway, Foodland, we all have loyalty programs. And it's to lower prices. Buy two, get one free. So I don't understand why it was taken out, and our request is if you are going to move the bill forward, that the loyalty exemption be put back in.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Morwell.
Thank you. Okay. Dave Erdman from Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Hey, Dave.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please proceed.
My name is Dave Erdman. I'm the interim president and CEO of Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Retail Merchants of Hawaii respectfully opposes HB 2458 HD3. I have two comments here. Retailers use promotions, loyalty programs, and targeted discounts to help customers save money in a highly competitive environment. This bill is drafted too broadly and could unintentionally restrict those common pro-consumer practices, particularly for groceries and household essentials. Last comment is that at the time when Hawaii residents are looking for every possible way to save on groceries, this bill risks reducing discounts, limiting consumer choice, and making food less affordable rather than more affordable. For these reasons, Retail Merchants of Hawaii respectfully urges the committee to hold HB 2458. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Genevieve Moma for Hawaii Hunger Action Network. Okay, on Zoom, IT.
Not present, Chair.
Not present. Okay. And then we have Nina DeSalvo for Towards Justice. Also
Not
on
present,
Zoom.
Chair.
Okay, that completes the list of registered testifiers on House Bill 2458, House Draft 3. Anyone else that wishes to testify on this measure? If not, members, I'll note that there are 11 in support, 3 in opposition, and 3 comments. Any questions? I have a question for DCCA. OCP, please. Hi, Dominic. Thanks for being here. So,
Of course.
I know in your testimony, your request was for 450,000 for positions and enforcement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then one other question I had for you is, I don't know how closely you've studied this issue, but could electronic surveillance technology also incorporate use of personalized algorithmic pricing?
Personalized algorithm.
So if you were to use personalized algorithm pricing in electronic surveillance technology, could that be enforceable?
So the term itself, I should preface this by saying I'm not a technologist and I'm not a computer scientist, but the term itself is something of a term of art, depending on what statute you're looking at. There are 19 states that have comprehensive privacy laws. Hawaii is not among them. However, that term itself can be defined if you look at Colorado's law, for example, or California's law, for example, that are cited to in our testimony. That can mean different things. However, I think we're referring generally to the same idea, whereas, prices are based on what your habits are, your location, your salary, what you're willing to spend. So if you've ever had that experience where, you're looking for a flight on a certain website, and then you look, 5 hours later and the price is different or changes, that's kind of what I presume we're talking about in terms of algorithmic pricing for per the individual. So,
however, in this case, it relates to food primarily?
This bill began with the SNAP and the.
Right.
Yep. So we are talking about food. In our testimony, we do reference a study about Target, the company, where the price of something when someone was standing on the inside of the store was $148 greater than when they're outside. So yes, I think we're talking about the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a final question I have is, I know your request is for positions and funding, but could DCCA, I know in other states, I think like New York, the Attorney General's office is the enforcement agency. So if this bill were to move forward, is that something that DCCA could, if you were to get those positions, work with the Attorney General's office? Because I know they have a special investigative division that potentially could handle situations like this.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to get over my skis here, but I think it is something that we could do.
Okay.
Chair, I could address that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Moriarty, hello. Thank you. Thank you, Dominic.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. And I just wanted to...
If you can identify yourself, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Mana Moriarty. I'm the Executive Director at OCP. Appreciate the question. And we have been in discussions with the Attorney General's office about how various measures regulating artificial intelligence, regulating surveillance technology, surveillance pricing, as well as privacy could be enforced in the future, perhaps using resources shared by our offices. But as it stands, this measure is drafted in a manner that OCP is the primary enforcement authority here, and we share concurrent jurisdiction with the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Mr. Moriarty. Any questions, Senator Moriwaki?
Yes, thank you. So how would you enforce if this bill were passed? What would be the next steps?
Well, we'd love to hire somebody who can help us understand what type of data the companies are collecting and what if this data is actually being used to inform their pricing. So in the scope of this measure, we're talking about surveillance pricing. So it would require, number one, an understanding of what the companies are collecting from users, how the companies are using that to inform their pricing. As the chair mentioned earlier, this could get into areas like how an algorithm works, because certain data inputs are used to generate an output, what the price would look like on the back end. We'd love to have somebody who's knowledgeable helping us to figure out how the inputs lead to the outputs.
So I guess my concern is that we see the problems, but we're regulating without knowing what we're regulating. It sounds like that you're really wanting to have some kind of a person, a technologist, or a regulator or AG member of a group to actually identify what is it we're regulating, how do we enforce?
Well, this agency clearly makes us, this bill, clearly makes us the agency who is regulating. So we would need to have the resources to know how to go about and do our jobs well.
So, but I guess my question is, we're prohibiting actions when we don't quite know what it is that we're regulating and who's to do the enforcement.
I appreciate the comment. I think you'll see in our written testimony, there's some examples out there of some real life harms that have occurred to consumers from surveillance, what we might call surveillance pricing as defined in this bill. So I would submit respectfully that there are harms occurring from surveillance pricing. We do need to be specific about how we define the term and how we go about enforcing.
So you do have an arm in DCCA to actually enforce, if we pass this, to enforce surveillance pricing. Seems like you're trying to get somebody in to identify what to look for.
Yeah, this bill would give us the authority and the responsibility to go in and look. What I'm suggesting is that we need a skilled set of personnel to help us identify the issues so we can take appropriate action if we're presented with evidence of a violation or we have a suspected violation.
And so what was brought up with this loyalty program, is that something that we need to carve out of this? Or, so that we're protecting the things that are, we're enforcing against the things that are bad about surveillance pricing versus things that are helpful.
I'm glad you raised the question. It's a great question. And we advocated for the removal of loyalty programs from this measure. The reason we advocated is that loyalty programs have proven to be the experiment ground for all kinds of surveillance pricing, some of it which has led to consumer harms. For example, Delta Airlines CEO announcing on a shareholder call that we have this great new surveillance pricing technology that will allow us to charge customers the maximum amount that they're willing to pay. We think that could be a problem. But there are sort of solutions. This is a complicated and evolving area. I'm sure you've heard that before, but it is. One of the fixes that we identified in our testimony on this measure was that the California Assembly recently amended their bill to focus specifically on price increases due to surveillance pricing. So it's actually in the definition now of surveillance pricing, it only applies to price increases. We think something like that should be part of the conversation that we're having when we're defining the terms and we're addressing testimony from the previous testifiers who've testified that there's some benefits from reducing prices through these programs. Well, if we focus the bill on price increases, we're narrowing the focus to the more problematic behavior.
Okay, but that wasn't included in your testimony, though.
It was included in our testimony, just an observation about what the California Assembly did. We're not
I see it, yes.
necessarily recommending that at this time. We're at a really early stage and trying
To
to.
amend the bill to address that? Because it seems like that's at least a start. You don't want prices to increase based on your surveillance. You want, if anything, to decrease and actually make it.
Yeah, the point of our testimony on that was simply to sort of spark this conversation that this looks like, it could be a promising way to narrow the legislation.
It's really broad, not knowing what it is you're enforcing, because you have to ultimately enforce if you're prohibiting.
Right. Unfortunately, we haven't, fully digested everything that's going on, so it's a little early for us to make a concrete recommendation on that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further questions? Okay, thank you for being here, Mr. Moriarty.
Thank
Very
you,
helpful
Chair.
for the conversation. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, I think last call on House Bill 2458, House Draft 3. Okay, if not, I'll note that there were a total of 11 in support, 3 in opposition, and 3 comments. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next and our last item, which is House Bill 2137, House Draft 3. This is relating to artificial intelligence. And first up on our list is Ashley Tanaka from the AG's office. Aloha and welcome.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Morika Kawaki. Ashley Tanaka, Deputy Attorney General. We did submit comments just focusing on one paragraph of the bill that we had previously testified on in front of a House committee, and we had suggested deletion of that paragraph due to ambiguity with wording. That House committee had followed our recommendation and deleted the paragraph, but then a subsequent House committee reinserted the same exact paragraph. So we are again suggesting deletion, and in the alternative, we did recommend alternative amendments if this committee does not wish to delete the entire paragraph. I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Attorney General Tanaka. On Zoom, Adhan Downey for the Computer and Communications Industry Association.
Yeah, good afternoon, chairs, member of the committee. My name is Aidan Downey, representing the Computer and Communications Industry Association. While we stand on our written comments, I wanted to share a little more about our proposed amendments. While we support protecting citizens from AI misuse, House Bill 2137 currently risks inadvertently chilling free expression through overly broad definitions. Our provided proposed amendments create a more workable framework by focusing on three key areas. First, targeting bad actors. We suggest shifting liability away from neutral developers or hosting services and towards those who intentionally use AI to deceive. By requiring actual knowledge, we ensure the law punishes the harm, not the technology. Second, protecting free speech. To avoid a speech chilling effect, we recommend narrowing the definition of digital imitation to specific, identifiable individuals and strengthening the exemptions for parody, news, or satire, those protected by the First Amendment. Third, preventing frivolous litigation. We propose capping statutory damages at $25,000 and requiring proof of concrete harm, such as financial or reputational injury, rather than vague cognizable claims. These targeted changes will punish malicious deepfakes without compromising Hawaii's digital economy or constitutional rights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Downey, for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Yasmin Cheney from the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women. Okay, thank you. In support? Okay, that completes our list of registered testifiers on House Bill 2137, House Draft 3. Anyone else that wishes to testify on this measure? Okay, if not, members, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll take a brief recess. Recess, subject to the call of the chair. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We're reconvening our 301 Labor and Technology agenda. We are now in decision-making. We'll start off first with House Bill 2455, House Draft 2. This is relating to employment practices. On this one here, we are going to recommend that we pass with amendments, and the amendments will be technical and non-substantive amendments, and we're going to defect the date to January 1st, 2077. Any further discussion? If not, Vice Chair Lamasao for the vote. Chair votes aye.
Members are voting on HB 2455 HD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair also votes aye. Senator Ihara is excused and will be for the remainder of the agenda. Senator Moriwaki.
Aye.
Senator Favela is also excused and will be for the remainder of the agenda as well. Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator Lamasao. Our next item is House Bill 2165, House Draft 2. This is relating to the Hawaii Employment Security Law. Our chair's going to recommend that we pass with amendments. We're going to accept the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations proposed amendments in their testimony. In addition to that, we're going to restore language on page 2, lines 12 to 14, which had the language originally as stricken for subsection D, which basically we're going to restore this language, which individuals involved in a labor dispute and for whom an employee relationships continues to exist. Notwithstanding the fact that DLIR does have a list of union halls that that if you don't have to comply with the actively search. So we just asked that DLIR if you could just get further clarification from the Department of Labor regarding the January 8th letter, if that is still an issue. But our understanding is that we do need this measure to comply with federal law. So if you could just get further clarification. So we'll restore that language, and then we're going to defect the date to January 1st, 2077. Any further discussion, comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, if not, pass with amendments. Vice Chair for the vote. Chair votes aye.
Okay, members voting on HB 2165 HD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Anyone present wanting to vote with reservations or no? Hearing none, all members vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Next item is House Bill 1515, House Draft 2. This is relating to workers' compensation. Chair's going to recommend that we pass with amendments. We're going to accept and adopt suggested amendments from the chapter of the American Physical Therapy Association Hawaii, APTA Hawaii, in their testimony, which specifically has to do with the functional capacity examinations. And then we're going to defect the date to January 1st, 2077. And then in the committee report, we're going to note the concerns by the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, as we know them for their acronym, and their concerns that they stated in their written testimony. And with that, any further discussion? Okay, if not, Vice Chair for the vote. Chair votes aye.
Okay, members, we're voting on HB 1515, HD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Anyone present wanting to vote with reservations or no? Hearing none, chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chair. Next item is House Bill 1514, House Draft 2. This is also related to workers' compensation. Chair is going to recommend here that we pass with amendments. We're just going to defect the date to January 1st, 2077. And I know there was some testimony from advocates about the 120 days, but the director still has that discretion in hearing from testimony to extend that as need be for the vocational rehabilitation plan. So with that, pass with amendments, just affecting the date to January 1st, 2077. With that, any further questions? If not, Vice Chair for the vote, Chair votes aye.
Okay, we're voting on HB 1514, HD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Anyone present wanting to vote with reservations or no? Hearing none, chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next item is House Bill 2458, House Draft 3. This is relating to surveillance pricing. For this one, and hearing some testimony from DCCA, I feel that we do need to study this issue a little bit further. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this bill into a study and request that DCCA and OCP take a closer look at that. I know there was a request for positions for that, so whatever is needed for that. For a first study, we'll blank the appropriations for the study on that, and then we'll defect the date to January 1st, 2077. Okay, any further comments, questions, or concerns on that? Okay, with that, Chair is going to recommend we pass with amendments. Vice Chair for the vote, Chair votes aye.
Voting on HB 2458, HD3. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Anyone present wanting to vote with reservations or no? Hearing none, chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you so much. And then our last item is House Bill 2137, House Draft 3. This is relating to artificial intelligence. Chair is going to recommend that we pass with amendments. We're going to adopt and accept the Attorney General's amendments in their testimony. We're also going to adopt and accept the Computer and Communication Industry Association's proposed amendments in their testimony. And then we're going to defect the date to January 1st, 2077. Any further questions on that? If not, Vice Chair for the vote, Chair votes aye.
Members are voting on HB 2137, HD3. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Anyone present wanting to vote with reservations or no? Hearing none, chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes our agenda for today. We're adjourned.